Introduction. The most painful arrows come from nearby. The betrayal of intimacy. Who has caused you the deepest hurt in your life? Strangely, in most cases, it was not a stranger. It was family, an old friend, someone you loved. A rude remark from a stranger stings briefly and passes, but a single word from the person you loved most, the person to whom you most fully opened your heart, lingers for a long time. A family member's comment keeps returning through the night. A lover's expression of indifference unsettles an entire day. A friend's casual dismissal is enough to make something inside collapse. How could you do that to me? This sentence carries the paradox of intimacy within it. We opened our hearts precisely because we wanted to be close, and through that opening, the most painful wounds found their way in. Why do those closest to us hurt us most? And why do close relationships require a certain measure of distance? That is the question at the heart of what we will explore today. The wound is as large as the expectation. The reason we are more deeply hurt by those close to us is that we expect more from them. We have no expectations of strangers. So there is no disappointment, but of family, of lovers, of old friends we do. The depth of a wound is often proportional to how precious the relationship is. To be deeply hurt by someone close is, in a sense, evidence that the relationship holds a large place inside you, and yet knowing this does not make the pain smaller. Philosophy and psychology have long been searching for the answer. Part 1. The structure of intimacy as philosophy has seen it. Martin Buber, The Illusion Called Love. The Austrian Jewish philosopher Martin Buber identified two fundamental modes of human relationship. The first is the I-it relationship, treating the other person as an object, something to satisfy one's needs, fulfill one's expectations, receive one's feelings. The second is the I-thou relationship, treating the other, not as something to be changed or directed, but as an independent being who stands before us. Close relationships become painful when we treat the other in the name of love, not as a thou, but as mine. I'm saying this for your sake. That may be entirely sincere, but when mixed with the desire to change the other according to one's own vision, that sincerity becomes a wound with startling ease. Buber's insight: the other is not an extension of yourself. True intimacy is not about drawing the other inside oneself. It is about recognizing that the other can be different from you and standing quietly before that difference. Schopenhauer's Hedgehog dilemma. The 19th century German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer captured human relationships through the image of hedgehogs. On a cold winter's day, hedgehogs huddle together for warmth. But pressed too close, they prick each other with their spines. So they pull apart. Apart, they grow cold. So they draw close again, and are pricked again. What are the spines? Each person's individual qualities, desires, wounds, habits, values. We all carry our own. The closer we become, the more readily those spines reach the other person. This is the hedgehog dilemma. Intimacy warms us, but also increases the likelihood that our spines will touch. Kahlil Gibran, Together but with Space. The Lebanese poet and philosopher Kahlil Gibran wrote in The Prophet, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness. The pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. Sing and dance together, but let each one of you be alone." When two people press too closely together, they begin to shade each other's light. Just as a tree needs sunlight to grow, each person needs their own space in which to breathe. Love may not be the act of two people becoming one. Like strings on an instrument, each separate, yet making music together. It may be the creation of something shared between two people, who have not lost their individual lives. Rilke, the love that protects each other's solitude. The Austrian poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, "The highest task of a bond between two people is this, that each one should be the guardian of the other's solitude. To love someone is not to dissolve into them, but to love and protect their solitude. When we try to possess the other, we begin to lose them, each standing as a complete being and meeting the other as such. That is what Rilke calls true intimacy." Shin Young-bok, the distance that preserves a relationship. The Korean thinker Shin Young-bok wrote, "Relationship presupposes distance. Without distance, there is no relationship. Too close and you cannot see. To love someone is not to draw them inside oneself. It is to create the space in which that person can continue to be themselves." He once believed that distance harmed a relationship. With time, he came to understand that an appropriate distance is what protects it. Buddhism, attachment, and suffering. In Buddhism, the root cause of suffering is identified as attachment. Jibkag. In relationships, attachment means wanting the other person to remain exactly as we expect. Buddhism expresses this as Jeong Musang, all things are impermanent, ceaselessly in flux. Pain in close relationships often arises from the inability to accept this change. The other person has changed, and yet we are still expecting the person they once were. Non-attachment does not mean neglecting the relationship. It means seeing the other as they are, allowing for change, and refraining from trying to possess them. That orientation is, in fact, what allows a relationship to endure. Part 2. The Psychology of Intimacy. Attachment theory, the roots of expectation. Attachment theory, developed through the research of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, holds that the experiences formed with caregivers in early childhood continue to shape how we relate to those close to us in adult life. When we are close to someone, we come to believe they will protect us, that they will not abandon us, that they will understand our hearts. When someone close acts with indifference, the wound is not simply disappointment. It can register as anxiety. A word from a close person cuts so deeply because it does not only touch the present moment, it touches old memory, the memory of not being recognized, the fear of being left behind. This is why some conflicts appear trivial on the surface, while feeling enormous within. The other person says, "I just said it offhand." Inside us, something says, "It's happening again." You should already know. Close relationships carry a quiet layer of unspoken expectation. You should know without me having to say it. You ought to understand how I feel. At first, these expectations feel like love, but over time, they quietly become a source of pain. Wounds in relationships do not only come from major betrayals. More often, they come from small moments. Coming home exhausted and beginning to speak, only to find the other person looking at their phone. Summoning courage to share an inner feeling, only to be met with, "Why is that such a big deal?" A remark thrown out because we thought family would absorb it, which becomes, for the other person, a wound that stays. Gottman's research, 4 patterns that destroy relationships. The psychologist John Gottman, after decades of studying thousands of couples, identified 4 patterns that consistently destroy relationships. He called them the 4 horsemen: criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and the most lethal, contempt. All 4 appear far more frequently between close people than between strangers. The restraint that functions at a distance disappears as intimacy grows. The very things that need more care are given less of it precisely because we are close. Gottman also found what sustains a relationship is not the absence of conflict, but the way conflict is handled. Rather than criticizing the other's character, speak about your own feelings. Rather than becoming defensive, listen first. And no matter how angry, do not touch the other person's dignity. Brené Brown, the deeper the opening, the deeper the connection. Brené Brown, who spent more than 20 years researching vulnerability and shame, found that those who form genuinely deep relationships share one quality: they were willing to reveal their imperfections and fears to others, without hiding them. She called this capacity vulnerability. "I've actually been lonely. That hurt me more than I expected. I'm genuinely anxious right now." Bringing the unpolished truth of one's emotional state into plain view before another person. There is a paradox. We hide these feelings in order not to be hurt. We pretend to be unaffected, strong, fine. But Brown's research shows that this is the precise moment genuine connection is severed. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is showing up as you actually are and being willing to be truly present with another person. To be wounded in a close relationship is evidence that you opened your heart sufficiently. That is not weakness. It is courage. Differentiation and enmeshment. Staying oneself within a relationship. Bowen explained the conditions of a healthy relationship through differentiation of self, the capacity to remain deeply connected while not losing one's own feelings and thoughts within that connection. The opposite is what psychology calls enmeshment, the blurring of emotional boundaries in the name of love. When the other is anxious, it feels as though we must resolve it. When we are lonely, it feels as though the other must fill us. Concern becomes control. Love becomes interference. Attention becomes surveillance. The person with strong differentiation does not lose themselves. Even within a close relationship, the sense of being together while not losing oneself when that is present. Intimacy becomes a place of rest rather than confinement. Part 3. Why closeness produces wounds. The moment the filter disappears. With strangers, we naturally observe courtesy. We choose our words. We take care not to overstep. But with the closest people in our lives, that filter disappears. They're family, so this much is fine. We've known each other for years. They'll understand. That very ease is paradoxically what creates the wound. What most reliably damages a close relationship is not a heart without love. It may be the courtesy omitted precisely because we believed in that love. When familiarity becomes indifference. In the beginning, small gestures from the other feel large. In time, those gestures become taken for granted. Questions once asked with hesitation become commands. Why are you doing that again? You can't even understand that much? These words sound like problem solving, but in practice, they lower the temperature of the relationship. Close relationships are damaged less by major incidents than by the tone repeated every day. Having known someone for a long time does not mean one still knows who they are now. People move through different experiences and change in different directions. Good friendship may not be the relationship that asks each other not to change, but the relationship that learns and accepts each other as they go on changing. The mirror effect, seeing oneself through the other. Someone close to us often becomes a mirror for aspects of ourselves. When we see in the other something we dislike in ourselves, the reaction can be particularly strong. Psychology calls this projection. Seeing in the other something we cannot accept in ourselves and rejecting it there instead. Carl Jung explained this through the concept of the shadow, the feelings and aspects of ourselves pushed down into the depths of the psyche. A sense of inferiority, shame, the desire to be recognized. When someone close touches those places, a reaction of unexpected force can break through. The question, why does this feel so painful to hear, need not be a reproach toward another. It may contain within it the thread that leads toward a deeper understanding of oneself. The two faces of Jeong. Korean culture holds a distinctive concept with no precise Western equivalent. Jeong, a deep emotional bond that accumulates over long shared time. The deeper the Jeong, the deeper the relationship. But Jeong has two faces. The deeper the Jeong, the deeper the expectations, and the deeper the wound when those expectations are not met. The Korean expression, even hating is Jeong, exists for exactly this reason. One who has Jeong cannot leave even in dislike. So the joy runs deep, and so does the wounds stay. Yet Jeong does not mean one must accept every act of rudeness as a matter of course. Precisely because the Jeong is deep, it deserves to be handled with greater care and respect. Part 4. The closer, the more we owe each other. Tugye Yi Huang's Jeong, the attitude of not being careless. One of the central concepts in the thought of Tugye Yi Huang, the great Confucian scholar of Joseon Korea, is Jeong. Jeong is not simple politeness. It is the attitude of not taking the other person lightly, of exercising restraint in one's words and actions. Tugye held that this attitude must not be lost, even in one's closest relationships. The closer the person, the more carefully, not the less, one attends to their heart, not speaking carelessly simply because one feels at ease, not treating another's pain as a small matter, simply because one has known them a long time. This is the way of treating a precious person as precious. Dasan Jeong Yak Jeong. Courtesy is necessary even within the family. Dasan Jeong Yak Jeong, even through long years of political exile, left behind many letters to his children, containing guidance on how to treat those close to us. With the person seen every day, words of gratitude diminish. With the person always nearby, respect is replaced by taking for granted. And when taking for granted goes on long enough, the relationship gradually grows rough. The closer the relationship, the less carelessly one should speak. The longer the relationship, the less one should omit expressions of gratitude. Closeness is not permission to be careless. It is the reason to be more careful, because one wishes to remain together for longer. What wears a relationship down? 3 patterns deepen wounds in close relationships. First, unspoken expectation. Surely they should know this much. However close two people are, one cannot read the other's mind. Before grievances accumulate too long, there needs to be a willingness to speak more honestly. Second, using love as a reason to overstep. Controlling under the name of concern. Lecturing under the name of advice. Saying things that hurt because one feels entitled by the closeness. This becomes a trespass into the other person's space. Third, omitting courtesy toward close people because they are familiar. The moment one is kind to strangers and careless toward those nearby, the relationship begins quietly to wear away. Small practices that protect a relationship. First, try expressing feelings as disclosure rather than resentment. Instead of, "Why won't you understand?" try, "This is how I was feeling." Instead of, "The problem is you," try, "I was a little lonely then." Second, take time to try to understand the other rather than to change them. People open their hearts more readily in the moment of being understood than in the moment of being corrected. Third, preserve and respect each other's space. Even inside a relationship, there is a need for time alone. Areas one does not wish to speak about, and room in which to recover. Sometimes allowing that silence and space is the very thing that keeps a relationship warm for longer. Fourth, preserve small courtesies even with close people. Thank you. I'm sorry. Are you all right? These small words can become the fence that keeps a relationship standing for a long time. Appropriate distance, lasting warmth. An appropriate distance does not make a relationship more distant. When each person has their own space, the relationship can in fact go deeper. A good relationship is not one in which people are always together. It is one in which they are close enough not to lose each other and far enough apart not to injure each other. Closeness does not mean the absence of distance. Closeness may mean cherishing each other deeply enough to manage the distance between you. Conclusion: love too needs space. Why do those closest to us hurt us most? The wound is as large as the expectation, and the expectation is proportional to how precious the relationship is. Like Schopenhauer's hedgehogs, we draw close because we need warmth, and the closer we come, the more readily our spines touch. As Buber saw, when we begin to regard the other as mine, the relationship is hurt more deeply, perhaps toward those we love most. We have held the greatest expectations while extending the least courtesy. But once this is recognized, the relationship can be different. Following Jeong, attending more carefully to the hearts of those close to us. Following Dasan, omitting no expression of gratitude. Holding what Shin Young-bok said, an appropriate distance protects a relationship rather than diminishing it. The grain of today. First, the depth of a wound is proportional to the preciousness of the relationship. To be deeply hurt by someone close is also, in a sense, evidence that the relationship still matters. Second, intimacy is not possession. The dignity of a relationship begins with recognizing that the other is a person distinct from oneself. Third, a good relationship needs space, room for each person to breathe. An appropriate distance is not coldness. It is the respect of treating the other as an independent being. Fourth, the closer the relationship, the more courtesy matters. The moment ease becomes carelessness. A relationship begins quietly to wear away. Fifth, unspoken expectations cause the most wounds. However close two people are, what matters needs to be said honestly. Sixth, the wounds received from those close to us can become a doorway into self-understanding. Why does this hurt so much to hear? That question can be the beginning of looking more deeply into oneself, willingly drawing close for the sake of warmth. The hedgehogs, in the end, draw close again. Even knowing they will be pricked, they need the warmth. Even knowing they will be hurt, they love. And in loving, they are hurt again. Through that repetition, they gradually learn the right distance. They gradually become people who know each other more fully. True intimacy may not be a matter of holding each other more tightly. It may be the shared work of discovering together the distance at which neither will be hurt. That, perhaps, is what keeps a relationship alive longer and takes it deeper. The reason it hurts more the closer they are is that they matter that much. The fact that one can still be hurt is proof that one is still loving. An unseen current has carried us to this place. The years that passed unspoken shaped us into who we are. Life is always flowing, and we live by carving our grain upon its quiet course. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end. I hope this story has become a pair of eyes that see your life a little more deeply than they did before. Wisdom heard once tends to pass us by, but wisdom heard many times becomes the language of our own lives. If something resonated with you, we invite you to listen again. Each time you do, something new will reveal itself. Life cannot be explained. It only gathers, grain by grain, in silence. The grain of life loves you always. I hope your today is a little stronger than your yesterday. We will return with stories that go deeper still.